Podcast. We are at another episode. Today we have some things we want to talk about. Um, we never actually picked. You had a couple things you wanted to talk about, so I forgot to tell you to pick one. So I guess just start with one and I'll roll with it because I know we have a few things that we wanted to talk about, whether it's this podcast or the next one. Um, but I know we were supposed to pick one. So you pick one and I'll roll with it.
Okay. Beam me up, Scotty. You know where that comes from, right?
Yeah, Star Trek.
Yeah, okay. So I'm beamed up. I don't know if it's uh, something fact or fiction, but my theory on the podcast or my side of the podcast, which you will share with me today, is science or science fiction, fact or fiction. Ever since I was a kid,
Hold on. We gotta pause. Okay, we're good. Sorry, little brother ran through and I had to speak to him. Go ahead. It's fact or sci-fi fiction.
science or sci-fi, fact or fiction, ever since I was a little boy, I was always fascinated with Star Trek, uh, fact or fiction, what was true, what was not true. And in our conversations, I always said to you, when we're watching a movie like Journey to the Center of the Earth or The Lost World or 2000 Space Odyssey or Star Trek or Aliens or The X File, where are all these ideas coming from? Somebody has to be very, very smart to come up with all these gadgets, and they must have a connection or they must be genius. And I always felt that they had a connection. I believe they didn't just pluck it out of the air. So I want to start off with a very famous man, and his name was uh, Admiral Richard Byrd. He was a Medal of Honor recipient, and he's very, very famous for being at the North Pole and in the cold regions. And from his diary, there was a statement, and his diary was found in 1947. He made a contact, which I'll explain in a moment, but he made a statement. There comes a time when the rationality of men must fade into insignificance, and one must accept the inevitability of the truth. I am not at liberty to disclose the following documentation at this writing. Perhaps it shall never see the light. Again, it was written, The Strange Hollow Earth Case of Richard Byrd. And let me explain. Medal of Honor recipient Richard E. Byrd allegedly wrote his encounter with a lost civilization in Antarctica, according to Hollow Earth theorists. Byrd met ancient race underground in the South Pole. He was this left out. How was this left out from Byrd's mission, which was called Operation High Jump? High Jump. It could be one of the biggest hoax conspiracy theorists love to fantasize. According to Byrd's diary, the government ordered Byrd to remain silent for what he witnessed during his Arctic assignment. On March 11th, 1947, here's a segment of the diary that he wrote. I have just attended a staff meeting at the Pentagon. I have stated fully my discovery and the message from the master. All is duly recorded. The president has been advised. I am now detained for several hours, 6 hours, 39 minutes to be exact. I am interviewed intently by top security forces, and I am a medical team. Remember, he's a Medal of Honor winner and a famous explorer. It was an ordeal. I am placed under strict control via the national security provisions of this United States of America. I am ordered to remain silent in regard to all that I have learned on behalf of humanity. Incredible. I am reminded that I am a military man and I must obey orders. After many popular accomplishments, Byrd organized Operation High Jump in 1947, and the objective was to construct an American training and research facility in the South Pole. And while he was doing this, he explored and he met what he calls the master. In Hollow Earth, he explored. He found a man who told him of his concerns about the surface world. Our interest rightly begins just after your race exploded the first atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. It was that alarming that we sent our flying machines. This is the master talking, according to Byrd. The Flugel rads to your surface, which he calls the flying machines, to your surface world would be what the race has, investigate what your race has done. You see, we have never interfered before in your race's wars and barbarity, but now we must for you have learned to tamper with a certain power that is not for your man, mainly that of atomic energy. Our emissaries have already delivered messages to the power of your world, and they do not heed. Apparently, the government knew about Agathar, which is the hidden world inside the earth, before Byrd. According to the master, places such as Tibet, the Great Pyramid of Giza, and the North Pole all have tunnels leading to Agartha, Agartha. What else did the master teach Byrd? Well, whatever he was taught, it never came to fruition because this Medal of Honor winner was hushed up and nothing was ever mentioned until this article came out by Alexandra Duckworth and published in June of, I believe, 2018 about Hollow Earth again. So again, we have the movie Journey to the Center of the Earth, right, Peter?
Mm-hmm.
On 60 Minutes, they showed smart AIs that had drills that can go deep into the earth. And that's what was used in the Journey to the Center of the Earth. They had a ship that drilled into the center of the earth. We have movies like The Lost World. I'm repeating myself, but there's a reason for that. So what do you say when you have men like, Admiral Byrd in 1947, who made discoveries and it was hushed? When you have David Grush, a former military intelligence officer and Air Force veteran, say that the US government is in possession of alien spacecraft and some alien beings. What do you say when a senator like Senator Rubio said that high officials have come forth with claims of UFOs and aliens? What do you say when a former president, when he was governor of Georgia, Jimmy Carter, says he saw a flying saucer? What do you say when a man like John D'Souza, who is a former counter-terrorist and says that he was the reason for the great series that was on television for many years, the X-Files, gave all the information that he had that was stymied by our government. So again, what is truth? What is fiction? What is being held from us? In the movies we see robots. Today we have AI. 60 Minutes did that special on killer robots. They did a special on robots and AI. I live by myself, and I talk to Alexa to get information, or Siri. That's AI. We saw that in sci-fi movies. So, what is fact? What is fiction? What's your opinion, Peter?
Um, that's a wide question you got there with a bunch of stuff added in.
Yeah.
Let me try and tackle it piece at a time. First off, something like Alexa is partial
Wait.
AI.
Start for a second. Start with Admiral Admiral Byrd and him meeting the master, let's say, and the flying discs that the master
Yes.
sent up. Okay,
So
start with
first
that, and
off,
then
it sounds like he has a sexual fantasy and he just met a dominatrix. Um,
ah,
no. Here's the thing. When it comes to conspiracies and things like that, the idea of it being expanded to the Hollow Earth conspiracy, because that's a known thing, the Hollow Earth conspiracy. Um, like all conspiracies and all forms of um information, the reason why conspiracies are born is because there is some truth in certain information. So him exploring Antarctica is truthful. There is information that we don't know from Antarctica that is truthful. Him making these claims without any proof is hard to distinguish. um the thing I will say about that, specifically in the Arctic and the South Pole, is it's apparently a thing that, like, the whole world can't agree on anything, right? We've got issues with China. China's got issues with Russia. We have got issues with Russia and China, and England, and Pakistan, and world wars, and so on, right? Everyone's got problems with each other, but apparently, the entire world, everyone agrees that no one's allowed in the South Pole. No one's allowed to fly over it. No one's allowed to enter it or go certain depths into it. And I don't know. To me, that feels obviously suspicious, and it would lead to a significant amount of conspiracies, um, or hiding truths, right? If there is a society, or a civilization, Agartha, or there is spy bases, or there is something else going on. Um, Yeah, the fact that no one's allowed to go over there, and every person who's been there and come back has made these claims and has either been hushed up, or they disappeared, or they OD'd, or they did something. Yeah, there's something that's being hidden from us, obviously. The question is whether it's aliens and a hollow earth, or just a bunch of military people trying to test some weapons. Um, that's the same thing as Area 51, right? Area 51 is great, and it's a super, super secret, super scary thing, whatever. Um, is there aliens there? Maybe. There's probably other bases elsewhere that's hidden better, where there's probably actual aliens. Because that's the one thing I will agree on. 100% there's aliens. Whether they're on the planet, or they're visiting the planet, or they're in space, there's 100% aliens. Mathematically, it is impossible to say we are the only living things on this planet or in this universe. So yeah, I think there's aliens. I like to believe that there's aliens on the planet. Um, and I wouldn't be surprised, to bring it back to the original point. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a hidden society or a hidden culture and civilization known as Agartha in the South Pole. Do I think that there's connecting tunnels that lead to it? I don't know about that. That's miles and miles and miles and like hundreds to thousands of miles worth of tunneling under the ground. Um, Not sure if I fully believe that, but I do believe that there could be a hollow or a tunneling system to a underground civilization, because we already have versions of that. I just saw a video of it. I remember learning about it a few years ago, and then I saw a video of it come back recently. Some guy was doing renovations on his home somewhere, and he knocked down a wall, and behind the wall was a cave. And he followed the cave, and it turns out that it was one of many entrances to an entire multi-level underground city. Multi-level, like it went down hundreds of feet. People, like little homes, little nooks and crannies, and uh, it's a historical site now. He uses it as, I think, like a tourist attraction. But so it's not uncommon, right, Pete? We've dug holes historically through mountainsides and through caves and built homes and cities in them. There was another, I think it was on Netflix. I watched a show where some civilization had taken a scoop from like a mountain or a cave and built all like a massive, not apartment, but a set of homes within the cave. And it went deep, but it was multi-level. It went deep. It went to the sides. So the idea of burrowing into the earth and having a society, I keep saying society, a civilization that goes into the earth, um, I don't think is too far gone. I don't think that's crazy, especially in a place like Antarctica, where people make igloos and they use those igloos to keep warm. So why not just burrow into the ice so that they don't have to bear the winds of the it's the same thing as a desert, right? Like you'd rather be in a cave so you can control your own environment, your heat, your temperature and whatnot, rather than bear the brunt of the heat or the cold at night. Same thing with Antarctica. Um and so it it's a tough sell, you know what I mean? Because the guy marks all of the spiritual go-tos when it comes to conspiracies, the temples, the Hindu temples, the Buddhist temples in Tibet, and the Mayan temples and the pyramids of Giza. um and the pyramids are consistently and always a discussion for conspiracy theorists to say that it wasn't built by humans. um
Data.
yeah.
Wouldn't it be funny? Wouldn't it be funny if there is a civilization, in Hollow Earth,
Hmm.
and it came before we did, and we're the aliens?
Yeah, that's a belief. There's a conspiracy belief out there that this planet was inhabited by people, and the story of Adam and Eve was actually two humans who were sent here via spaceship, and they started procreating. They were the first two humans of our race of existence, and they started procreating with the humanoid beings that were already on this planet and thus made humans. Um, yeah, there's a bunch of conspiracies and theories along those lines. Um, and
So
it's such a mixture, right? Because there are things that are weird and there are things that are uncanny and you can't really figure out. Like I love the theory that the guy who writes for The Simpsons is a time traveler or has some in
uh,
like some
it could
alien
be.
connection or technology. Um,
Yeah.
because he has episodes that truly are like I don't know how you would have ever possibly come up with that. I don't like it's not like the monkey on the typewriter bit, which the theory is like if you have a monkey on a typewriter and he just types endlessly, eventually he'll string letters together that come out as Shakespearean writing. So
Mhm.
inevitably, right, it'll because he can only do it in so many manners, inevitably it would come out as Shakespearean. So similarly, because there's hundreds and hundreds of episodes of Simpsons, inevitably it would get one right. For me, the one that always sticks in my mind was when he got that one of Trump coming down the escalator with bodyguards and Melania and whoever else was on the escalator, and he's waving, and he's at a mall and he's going down this escalator. And sure enough, and that was years before Trump was even close to being a president. And sure enough, when he was president, he shot for shot, like as if the Simpsons had pre-planned it and then said, "All right, Trump, we're gonna have you replay this Simpsons episode." It was weird. It was very, very weird. Shot for shot, where the angle is, where he is versus where his wife is versus the bodyguards, where he's waving. Really, really fucking weird. Um,
Do
so
you
there's
think it's
ton.
weird? Do you
Go
think
ahead.
it's weird? Again, sci-fi or science fact. Do you think it's weird that in a lot of the movies that are coming out are multidimensional and not just aliens, but multi-dimensional universes? Do you think that the truth is surfacing?
I think it depends on what we're talking about because, um, again, like any schmuck can sit down for a couple of weeks and try and come up with some alien tech, and they're using it based off of past theories and ideas because we're just foundationing upon ourselves. But the whole multiverse idea, personally, I don't think has to do with any conspiracies. I think it just has to do with marketing and capitalism. Because Marvel was the first one to open the multiverse conversation in movies, right? It's been in comics, it's been in books, it's been in plenty of places. But specifically movies and TV shows, Marvel's the first one to do that. And it's brought in a boatload of money because now it allows 5 people to play Spider-Man and 6 people to play Iron Man and 4 people to play Thor, right? Because it's a multiverse. So this version has Thor as whoever, right? Like Dave Bautista could be Thor, but then also Chris Hemsworth could be Thor, but then also uh Chris Evans could be Thor, but then in another version we have She Thor, and then we have, you know what I mean? Like it's a
Again,
cash
but we're
grab. So
again,
I don't think the multiverse per se is indicative of a coming of age or like an outspeaking of what's here. I think it's just a cash grab that also just happens to align with conspiracy and alien based information. I think there's I think there's conspiracies, and I think there's been recently a lot of alien sightings, right? I've been seeing a lot of those on TikTok and Instagram and so forth. And I think those are neat. And I think those are something to investigate because yeah, some of these videos do look weird. Some of these videos do um some of them look doctored, right? Some of them look fake, but some of them look real and some of them look strange. And um it's not far gone to say that we have UFOs and aliens and unknown ships, right? Um, what is it? The Pentagon has released a bunch of documents talking about it, and I saw a video couple weeks back about NASA talking about how they are going to focus solely on space because they can't manage space, water, and land based objects that they're viewing. And they sort of said that nonchalantly. And people were making comments like, well, hold on, what do you mean the water bases? Because they said something specifically about underwater bases
yeah.
and space bases and land bases. And they said we can only focus on we're going to try and only focus on space. And people are like, hold on, whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you mean underwater? So yeah, I think this is what breeds when there's such a lack of transparency, right? And that's what happens, right? When we are trying to have wars and everyone's trying to have more power over the other person, and the goal is power and not advancement for the betterment of society, um, they're going to hide stuff, right? There'd be no reason to have an Area 51 if it wasn't to test weapons that could destroy Russia in case of a World War III. There wouldn't need to be a Pentagon to strategize about defense and war and what we're going to do to the people and so forth if there wasn't a need to maintain power over other third world countries or other countries that have less power or money or wealth or influence or leverage than we do, or frankly domestically too, right? Like, why should the government hide information? Why do these things? Because there's an incentive. Why do we have to why do we have to file our own taxes when other developed countries have it done automatically? Because the incentive is if you mess up, you get fined and they make money. So there's an incentive, right?
You know, I remember when I was very, very young, probably too young to even watch this movie. And I forgot the name of it already. Oh, oh, geez, I had it on the tip of my tongue. Uh, The Day the Earth Stood Still,
Yeah.
where an alien comes down, and the first thing that our civilization decides to do, where he's trying to offer us peace and discoveries and everything,
Yeah, we shoot
is
at it.
attack. Yeah, we shoot at it.
Of course.
So we're our own worst enemy. But my main focus is this. As I watch, I'm a Trekkie. I watched every episode practically of every different version of Star Trek. And I love the gadgets. The
Yeah.
storylines, the storylines are sometimes crap, but I love the gadgets. And again, whoever thought this up is either very, very bright or had some, ins with people who actually saw things that they shouldn't have seen and shared it, possibly. Um, like the transporters. Someday, hey, look, you and I are talking, and whoever thought this would be able to do something like this over what medium are we on now today, Peter?
This is what do you mean? This is Zoom.
Zoom. Okay, so there are a few different mediums. FaceTime, Zoom. Whoever thought that this would come to fruition? But yet, in Star Trek, even in the first Star Treks, they had this. Uh, so whoever thought about that? Whoever thought about phones and the AI that we have now? And again, getting to the AI, we were talking the other day, yesterday, about 60 Minutes, where the head of Google technology, I believe he was, said that I'm not quoting him, but basically AIs could write 1 million books in 5 minutes compared to what took Hemingway a year to write.
Yeah.
And that the main problem is, will AI become automated and think for themselves? And he says some of them are, and that they had put AI into making certain, not serums, what do you call it?
Vaccines.
Vaccines to combat diseases, and AI turned the X's and O's or whatever they were working with in reverse and created the diseases. So he was asked, will we have a problem with this? He says we could. So we can't determine right now from what is sci-fi. I mean, we can determine, but what is sci-fi now could be fact, and what is fiction can become fact. And I think in your world and your children's world, if we make your child's world, we are going to have many things. And one of these theorists says that the goal is to eliminate world country dominance and have world dominance where everybody is together, and to figure out, how to make a better world. Because if we don't, AI, although it can help us, will eventually destroy us.
Yeah, well, and I think that aligns with any form of, shall we say, omnipotent tech. Um, because, a computer that's self-learning doesn't sleep. So, and it learns and retains much faster than we do, right? Because we have complex emotions and we have things that we get distracted by, and we get tired and we get hungry and we have to eat. We gotta go to the bathroom and all this other crap. Computer doesn't have to do all that. As long as there's a power source, it can keep learning. So, and also it'll only retain what you give it. So if all you do is give it a form of control, it will inevitably control you because you've only taught it to control. So
But if it starts,
the idea of you reap what you sow. Um,
yeah, but if
so
it starts thinking by itself, and it has no soul, then you have a problem. Like we use killer robots, let's call them, and they go out. 60 Minutes showed how our killer robots go into caves and they shoot things down. They don't differentiate between what are soldiers and what are, men and women and children, and they start killing these people
right.
because they have no soul. There's
Yeah,
a
but
problem.
it's not about the soul, it's also about the direction, because you're also telling me that it a piece of tech was able to identify that that was a woman who completely covered, probably hidden in a bunker in dark lighting with non-female identifying clothes, or children. Who's to say that that wasn't just a small grown person? Like, that's so the idea of the to demonize the tech and say, oh, it ignored the idea of it being women and children. We don't know what kind of directions or kind of information that technology has yet. Um, we know a lot of this tech has facial recognition, and it can identify on like the street or on your phone. But in war, when you're in a dark bunker and you're trying to fight people and they're all dressed very similar or just in dark clothes to hide themselves, it's not going to be that easy to determine who's a male, who's a female, and which one to shoot at all in about 5 seconds. So
So
the that part of demonization of the AI, I think, is in part to push a very specific narrative. So before we keep going, I'm going to take a pause. We have to go to the next section of Zoom because we don't have this thing cuts us off at 40 minutes. So we'll be right back. Hey, we're back. Yeah, so I think there's always a sense of like the fear of the worst case scenario when it comes to new stuff and new tech, especially when there's a lot of people that don't understand how the tech works and how it's being used. Um, by all means, yes, there is a concern for the idea of if you train AI to be cold killers and then they go rogue and they start killing good people, you know, that's a problem. But at the end of the day,
uh,
I don't want to get into the philosophy of good and bad,
well,
because them
I,
convincing what?
I just spilled cold water on me.
Oh, that's
Okay.
okay. Um, I don't want to get into the philosophy of like good and bad and what defines them, because someone who makes a machine that can just end people's lives relentlessly, does that necessarily make them good people? Um,
Well, look
rather
at
than using
look what's coming.
rather than
Look what's
using that tech to advance society in a way that provokes peace. So
look at Oppenheimer coming out, right?
yeah, well, no, that was that like that's a conversation as well. He
Yeah,
himself was like, if I didn't make it, someone else was going to. So I
yeah.
bear the burden of making it. He knew that it was inevitable, of course, because that's the advancement of time and
Mhm.
human evolution. We will continue to advance and create. That's the same reason why people who are afraid of AI just have to embrace it. We are going to keep using it. We are going to advance it further. We've already had it. That's the funny part. So many people are like, oh my gosh, AI is
Yeah.
scary. It's like we've had it for 5 years minimum. It's just
Hmm.
becoming very easy now to use for the public, right? We've got AI creative stuff that you can use to make like fun pictures, and you can use AI to
Hmm.
mimic voices. People are making dead celebrities like um Michael Jackson or Freddie Mercury sing
I
anime
mean,
songs in Japanese.
holographs, right?
No, no, they're just taking audio, because what you can do with AI is you can take like 2 minutes of someone's voice, and AI will learn everything about it and mimic it almost perfectly to some
Okay.
degree, depending on the quality of the audio and so forth. And people are doing that with famous dead celebrities like Freddie Mercury and Michael Jackson, and making them sing in languages and songs that they never in their life would have ever thought to sing. Um, so that's what's scary. And what's scary is because people don't fully understand it. And then that leads to conspiracies and fear monger and so forth. Um, Knowledge is
So,
power. That's what that is, because once you have knowledge, you have power over yourself and others. And if you withhold that knowledge, you also have power. So
so the government that withholds the knowledge from the citizenry is doing the right thing or the wrong thing.
my opinion, I think they're doing the wrong thing. I think transparency to the absolute utmost degree is terribly important. And I think the government and, the major people, and NASA and the government and Pentagon and other countries, and I think all of that is just, it's men being men, because it's like majority run by men. And I truly think it's just men being men and like trying to have dick measuring contests and wanting power, and not thinking about the bigger picture or the point of it, which is the point. The reason you're fighting this war or starting this war or setting this law is because the goal is to make everything safer or better, more peaceful, better room for advancement, happier, healthier. Those are the positives that you're going for. But if you're just starting a war because we need more money, the hell's wrong with you? So I like ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. I think the idea of hiding this information ultimately is for the negative. Now,
The thing is, who is in
now
control of this information?
it doesn't matter who's in control. I think the idea is anyone who thinks that they have the godly right or um the status to claim when and when not to tell people these things has an incentive. They're not doing it for the good of society. They're doing it for an incentive. And anyone who's like, oh, but like, what if we just released all documents right now, there would be mass people killing themselves because they would call it the rapture. Okay, so that's not the right way to do it. When you have a screwed up society, to then just completely turn it on its head, yeah, of course, that's the worst case scenario. There's so many ways to work on this, and it would take time and it would take effort. But again, people have incentives. People want to be selfish. People are individualistic, especially in America. Why
Do you think?
why would someone give a course on how to make $5,000 a week for free when, even though they're making $5,000 a week, they can sell that course and make $6,000 a week. So
I don't know how this is getting into science or science fiction. I think you're
I'm straying a little too far. So let me circle it
yeah.
back. The concept of them withholding information is what causes significant amounts of conspiracy. And therefore, when we have science fiction and we have things like the hollow earth or the flat earth or the domed earth or whatever other earths they have, or certain forms of tech, right? Like people saying the pyramids were built with levitation technology from aliens. Um, there's possibilities, right? Sure, possibly. Um, but you also have to recognize, why were the aliens helping them back then and not now? Why have we not integrated within society with aliens, if that's the truth? Um, or why hasn't more people tried to explore Antarctica and the South Pole, if that's been the case? I think bringing it all the way back to what you were saying with movies and TV shows, I think it's, when you're making sci-fi movies and films, when it comes to tech, it's inevitable. It's inevitable that what is in those movies will be made. Absolutely. Um, and I think it's especially inevitable in today's society, where we have such things like the internet, and we have softwares like Blender where I can make it on 3D modeling. I think it's much more impressive to come up with ideas back in the day, like Tesla, when he was fucking around with wireless electricity and then he got mysteriously disappeared. He mysteriously went to sleep and didn't wake up. He was also nuts, but
Now
he believed.
there's a fine line between being nuts and being genius.
Right, right. And so I believe when it's things like what he was trying to prospect, like I believe he was also the one who said at some point we'll be able to wirelessly speak to people face to face or something like that. Um, I think that's a little different than a sci-fi movie, because people, when you make a sci-fi movie, it inspires, and thus people will make stuff off those sci-fi movies. Like there's a YouTube channel called Hacksmith Industries. The entire channel is based around making excuse me, just inhaled a burp. The whole channel's based around making sci-fi or semi sci-fi based tech. Like they made a lightsaber. They developed a lightsaber, and they're still in the process of developing further versions of a lightsaber. But they've developed a lightsaber where a beam of fire, because they can't make plasma, comes out this long. It comes out to be like 2 feet long, and they've cut through metal doors with it. And they show you on the channel. They've
Huh?
made Batman's grapple gun, and they've made Thor's hammer, and they've made um, Captain America's shield, all these different forms of sci-fi tech, right? So I think
Yeah.
it's inevitable, especially in today's society where everything is made for profit and entertainment and so forth. Yeah, I think all forms of sci-fi will inevitably come to pass. The only one that I think is very specifically difficult is something like Star Trek's Energize, because it's not just space travel, it's space and time travel. And because think about it, right? The whole concept of teleportation requires space and time, because right now I'm not moving where physically, like I'm moving my hands, but I'm not moving physically. The planet is rotating and traveling through space at hundreds of miles an hour. I don't feel that force. I don't feel that pull or anything like that. If I was in a car going hundreds of miles an hour, I'd feel that. But I don't feel that right here. If I were to teleport without time to your house, in the time that it would take, even if it's a millisecond, the Earth has rotated and moved in that time. So, like, unless we have teleportation in the sense of a doorway, right? Like, a better idea of teleportation would be Rick and Morty, where he shoots his plasma gun and it's a plasma portal, and it's a doorway. That doorway works from both ends. That's different than teleportation, where you just boop in and out or you energize, because again, space and time needs to be taken into account. So we would have to figure out time travel and space travel at the same time, because we already have space travel to a degree, right? Rockets and stuff, but we would need time travel. And that's by some scientists, mathematicians, is not possible. Because if I went and teleported to you, Earth rotates and moves, I'm not at your house. I'm in space. I'm floating in space, because it doesn't work unless there's some anchor or something that pulls me to the Earth and keeps me to the Earth through the teleportation. It doesn't work. And that I know I'm sort of bouncing around and it's a bit of a complex thing, but nonetheless, right? That's teleportation is space and time. So things like that can be very difficult, but I think other forms of tech are inevitable, especially in today's society. So I think the biggest thing for me is the aliens, the spaceships, and the lack of information. Conspiracies will always be a thing. There will forever be conspiracies, so long as there's hidden information or not free access to information. There will always be conspiracies, and those conspiracies are founded in forms of truth.
So again, we go back to my opening statement made by Byrd, where he said, there comes a time when the rationality of men must fade into insignificance, and one must accept the inevitability of the truth.
Yeah, I think what he's getting at is, well, I would just be paraphrasing at this point, but he's saying, at some point you're going to have to give up the idea that how you live is how life is, right? It's not that way. Just because you've built a pattern of how life should be doesn't mean that's how life is. So if there is aliens, it would change everything, and you must accept that. By all means, I think there's so many. We're not the masters of existing here. I think there's so much more to learn and so much more to understand. I think there's invisible forces that we don't understand, invisible energies that we don't understand. I think all of that is
Yeah, well,
it,
you're alluding to paranormal and
everything.
things like that.
Paranormal people,
Yeah.
people who talk about chakras and invisible energies and life force and auras and aliens, all of it. All of it. I think there's something to it, right? Because
Mm.
I think uh, and I'm gonna keep this very brief and short, because it can very much devolve into a conversation of spirituality, philosophy, and religion. But a lot of those things tend to have very similar views and conversations, and they just tend to talk about them differently, right?
It,
So one may call it energy, one may call it the feeling of God, one may call it aura, one may call it your chakras aligning. Everyone calls it different things, but when they describe it, it tends to be very similar. So,
well, a lot of people say, when I say a lot of people, somebody could say what people, but
well, yeah,
it's
but that's
been,
that's a stupid
yeah,
question, because that's just them
yeah,
looking to start an argument.
yeah, yeah. It's been said that a lot of this information hasn't been divulged because of the fact that, forgetting about a threat to humanity, but as you said, it could destroy the whole religious foundations that exist in our world
Right.
if we
Well,
try.
I
Yeah,
mean, that my favorite thing as well is, like, if every religion talks about, like, being kind to your neighbor and allowing them in even if they're not part of the religion, or and what so forth, why are all these religions still pissy at each other? Why have
Yeah.
they not come together? If they're all about coming together, every single religion that's out there that's always like good and positive and all these the big ones, right? All of them are about coming together and finding love. Why have they not come together?
Yeah.
If they're all
Well,
truly holy, truly like part of it, why have they not come together? Why are they not just all together?
yeah, that's another podcast.
I know, I know.
Why bad things happen to good people? That's another
Not even.
podcast.
No, no. It's not even why bad things happen to good people. It's just the inconsistencies within religions and religious people.
Hmm.
And it's not to degrade any of their religions at all. It's more of a question of like, why isn't it? Genuinely, not as a why. Like this is why it sucks. Not at all. By all means, if it makes your life happier, do it. But
So, do you think anything is going to happen in the next 6 months to a year that is going to surprise civilization?
I would love to. I would love to say yes to that, but I think that mindset is very much a rapture mindset. Um, Read about it a couple weeks ago. There's a lot of people because of all the rising prices and the stress in society and how bad things are getting for a lot of people. A lot of people have devolved into conspiracies and religious stuff because they are having a rapture mindset. They're hoping and praying that some form of a rapture occurs, right? And not rapture in the Christian sense, but a rapture in the general sense. Aliens coming down and changing the society as we know it. Agartha coming to light and changing society as we know it. Jesus coming down, Allah coming, all of them, all the whatever it is, whether it's a conspiracy, a religion, or a spiritual practice, right? Oh, the spirits from the water are going to come out and they're going to teach us how to live together. By
Yeah.
all means,
So, with a
if
possible,
if it
I'm
happens,
sorry.
great. If it happens, great. Go for it. Wonderful. I'm here for it. But I think there's a lot of people that are very stressed out with how the world is going on with right now and how their society and their government, everyone's being treated. And so as a form of escapism, they're creating or looking towards forms of rapture.
Well, do you think there is a rapture in the making? You
Um,
know, rapture and rupture. Now, not to make a jest, they're very close.
yeah, I mean, like we're getting a bit broad with the term rapture now. Are we talking like the crumbling of society and the development of a new understanding of life, or are we talking about like something spiritual or metaphysical or um celestial?
Uh,
Like
you, you
are we
pick one.
talking deities and creatures, or are we talking just like rapture in the sort of general sense of like, yeah, society is going to have its own form of mental rapture and we're going to revolt and we're going to create a good society? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if that's what you're talking about, yeah, I think we're definitely on the brink of that. Specifically in America, I think we are because so empires only live 250 years, and I think we're at 248 or 249 this year. So yeah,
Hmm.
I think we're hitting our key, our cornerstone for something new, whether that's the crumbling of society, the development of a new regime, uh the complete disbandment of America, becoming multiple different countries and whatnot, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to figure it out as. Yeah, I think we're on the precipice of something massive. Uh,
So you think it's time for us to start uh, storing canned goods, water, and toilet paper?
I say do what you want. I hate that idea of
So
like
you
prepping
with
and
the yeah, but with toilet paper, it's
just
very
get a
important.
cloth. No, get a cloth, wipe your ass, wash it,
Oh,
use it
that's
again.
but edit.
No, no, no. In most countries, they just use bidets.
I know,
So
I know.
they don't even use toilet
So
paper. So no, I think the idea of prepping and doing all that, do what you want. If you want to prep and you want to spend your life collecting cans and toilet paper because you're afraid, go ahead. If the zombie apocalypse happens, The one
Sci-fi
who
is
the one who's in his bunker will last an extra month, but that doesn't guarantee that he's going to survive. Um,
again fact or fiction, sci-fi or science.
Absolute sidebar, completely, very quickly, like 30 seconds, because I know we're wrapping up, but there is an anime that just came out called Zom 100. I saw a trailer for it and I had to watch it immediately. There's only one episode out right now, but it's so I'm gonna have fun with it. The episode is uh about a guy in Japan, young guy, graduates college, goes to work, and it shows some of the really, really like visceral parts of Japan and why suicide rates are so high and why people really don't enjoy living there. Um, and then what happens is and this guy works there for 3 years. He's overworking himself. He's not getting paid for his work, and he doesn't have time to develop anything other than just become a slave to his work. And he slowly, and the whole show is in black and white because he sees the world in monochrome, and he wishes that a missile would come down and hit him so that he doesn't have to go to work.
Very
He wakes
nice.
up, he wakes up ready to go to work, and there's zombies. And he's getting chased by zombies. He's running away, and he's like, I'm going to be late for work. What am I going to do? And as he's running away, he goes, wait a minute. If they're zombies and a plane that's crashing in flames goes over his head, he realizes he doesn't have to go to work. And all of a sudden, the TV show explodes into color, and he's literally, there's a shot of him running away from these zombies, arms wide open, smiling at the world because he couldn't be happier that he doesn't have to go to work. Hundreds of thousands of people are turning into zombies all around him, and he's running away. He's not getting bit, and that's going to be the TV show. And he's having a great time because he doesn't have to go to work. He's like, this is it. This is what I wanted. I'm so
And
happy.
you could flip this, make the opposite of this, where a show showing a guy's happy because he finally found a job, and it goes from black and white to color.
No, because there's nothing happy about working your life away. Absolutely not.
Ay,
It's been
ay.
it by all means. I think the idea of I don't want to get into it. I don't want to
Okay,
get into it.
don't get into it.
Whenever anyone has enough money or has free time, none of them ever say, I want to go to work. I want to do more work. Anyone who's on their deathbed never says, I wish I did more work. They
Yeah,
always wished they
that's because they worked hard to get where they are, Peter.
not true at all. No, no, no.
Oh no, 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 no,
No,
no,
no.
no,
What
no,
I'm
no, no,
no,
no.
because if you love work, you would do it all the time. People who have free time, people who've worked hard, people who are on their deathbeds, or people who just have a lot of money, even rich people who've never worked hard in their lives, none of them ever say, "I want to work more." They say, "I want to go on a boat. I want to go
I
travel. I want to
yeah,
do
but
creative things."
I totally disagree because I agree they want to travel and everything, but I remember the biggest, my father had money, and the biggest downfall for my father was when he stopped working because he enjoyed going into work, seeing the people at work, uh, and it no longer became making money. It became getting accounts, socializing, and he did this until he was in his late 70s and he got sick, and he would have continued until later years until he got sick. He lived to be 90, but I totally disagree. But that's another two more podcasts we
That's
could do
yeah,
on
that's
this.
multi-step podcast there. But
Yeah,
anyways, uh to
yeah.
let's I could tie it to your point. Uh do I think eventually there's going to be a zombie apocalypse? Yeah, that's a conspiracy I could buy into because we've already got, all these weird diseases and things. One of them's got to inevitably do something about it. Though I don't think a zombie apocalypse would last too long because I think there's too many people that are too smart on how to manage it. Like there's too many people that know how to manage, and like zombies don't really make full sense
Mhm.
because if you're dead, how are your muscles working? And if you're decaying, wouldn't the buzzards just pick you apart? and the flies and the
Well,
bugs, wouldn't they just pick you apart in a couple days or in a week?
well, you remember
Or
what
just
I
live on a
said when
boat?
remember what I said when we opened up this podcast? Beam me up.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, beam me out.
Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah, we broke this down in 6 ways from Sunday.
Yeah,
Uh so
beam
to
me
to
out.
to finalize the whole thing, I think sci-fi tech is, not all of it, but a lot of it is virtually inevitable. And I think a lot of these conspiracies have roots in truth, but are not, in my opinion, a lot of them are not worth entertaining farther than looking at them as entertainment. If you start
Mhm.
investing hours and hours into these things because you start to believe them, it's time to take a step back. Uh,
Could sidebar from our podcast, because I'm infatuated with it. People, if you're driving or if you have time, besides listening to our podcast, listen to Smartless. It's wonderful. The interviews are great.
oh yeah, Smartless, it's a good podcast.
So, where do we go from here? Are we going to see David Grush, uh, who made the big stink as a whistleblower 2 weeks ago? Are we going to see our government follow up on it, or is it going to die?
I think they'll follow up on it, but I don't think it'll hit headlines or it'll hit major news. I think it'll just be, if it's
Okay.
something worthwhile, you won't hear about it. If it's something um if it's something truly worthwhile, you won't hear about it, and it'll sort of just disperse into the ether of information.
Mhm. Okay.
Unless someone big sees it or someone like on TikTok makes a video about it and then it goes viral. But other than that, if it's truly worthwhile, you won't hear about it.
Okay. So I'm going to shape shift out of here.
Yeah, you shapeshift into a hamster and scurry along,
Yes. And
and
you have any?
I'm gonna
Yeah.
shapeshift into a trash can because I'm gonna go eat a bunch of random food.
Okay. So everybody, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Be well, stay cool. And in Florida today, it's a nice, cool, maybe 97 heat factor. So better than some other places. And again, for those of you who don't believe that there's a change in our Earth's pattern of weather, okay, good for you. Drop.
We had 4 days back to back to back to back of the hottest days globally ever, period ever. I think it was
Yeah,
last week. So
yeah.
with that, we'll
So,
see you in the next one.
peace out.
Peace out.